All right. This is Parca Office Hours. It's August 1st, 2023, and we have a bunch of really awesome updates to both Parca and Parca Agent. First of all, while we haven't released yet, a bunch of really awesome things have either landed in Parca or we're working on in Parca. And first, Manoj is going to tell us a bit about end-to-end tests.
Yeah, recently, we have been focusing on the UI stability for the Parca profiler. So, as part of that, we integrated the front end automation tests with a tool called Meticulous. So, Meticulous is a tool that automatically records sessions based on how you interact with the UI and has a copy of it and reruns it for whenever you want to validate if a build is working fine. And they have nice GitHub Actions integration so that you can add run these tests whenever a new PR is raised and merge the PRs based on the status of these checks. So let me quickly share the screen. Yeah, so here's an example PR where we could see that the test has passed, obviously, in this since it's just a dependency update. So we can see that Meticulous spotted 0 differences in the screen tests, and it's good for merge on Meticulous side. On the other hand, we can see other PRs where there are some differences in the screens, and it marks the PR as there are differences in and someone has to manually approve it, or you have to fix it to proceed with merging the PRs. So how it works is basically it reruns the user session with a marked network request and takes screenshots after key events and compares the screenshots. So this is an example before and after session that created a difference. So yeah, there were a few noise around these, and we're fixing each one of them. So this since this is an older PR, we still have some differences, and we recently fixed this one, so it should be good from now on. Yeah, that's mostly about the end-to-end tests. Any questions?
I think it also, the more we use it and the more we tell it which differences are okay, the more it kind of learns to ignore things, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we have this recorder snippet that's enabled for the on development environments. So on these environments, it tries to see how we interact with the app and prioritizes sessions based on that. The ones that's used more regularly becomes high priority, and the ones rarely used becomes low priority and stuff like that. Yeah,
makes sense. I guess that means we should all click around in the previews a bunch more from now on.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, but we also have it enabled for the development, so we catch most of it there as well.
Very cool. Very nice. All right. The other big theme in what will be Parca 0.19 is all about profile labels. And to demonstrate that, I launched a local Parca server, and I'm going to show this functionality now. So we all kind of know and love the functionality to use infrastructure labels for filtering purposes. This has been, ever since Parca was initially launched, has been available in the core thing of Parca. But some formats, in particular pprof, the format that we most tightly integrate into, actually allows not just adding labels to, or actually it has no concept of infrastructure labels, but it has a concept of being able to add additional labels to stack traces. And then when we hover over this, we can see over here, we can actually distinguish individual stack traces additionally with labels. So not just up here, but also down here. And the first feature is that we actually show these labels now. We've actually been storing them for a very long time already, or actually I think also since the launch of the project. But up until now, we've never actually done anything with these labels. So the couple of features that we've implemented here are, of course, displaying these. Then the next one is that we can group by them. In this case, it's not particularly useful to view, but originally this came from the Rust community, where it's common to have multiple threads. And I think Javier is going to tell us about this in a second as well, because there's another feature in Parca Agent that we implemented to do this. But in the Rust community, it's quite common to launch a thread for a worker pool, for example, let's say 8 threads for something, and they all kind of do similar things. But users wanted to understand, are all of these threads equally saturated, or is there one that's maybe undersaturated or oversaturated, and kind of trying to understand not just how are the stacks looking cumulatively, but per unit of execution, basically. And that's what this grouping of labels allows people to now view. So that's kind of profile labels feature number 2. And the last one, and I'm pretty excited about this one, is you can now take these labels and actually also filter by them. So what we can now see is that I'm only seeing the stacks down here that actually contain the Parca component equals scraper. And we have a couple of other things instrumented here. So for example, HTTP server. Now we're seeing only the CPU time used by these by stacks that have the HTTP server label. And in case you didn't notice, the metrics graph is also filtered by this. So let me go back and kind of remove this, and we'll see this. So here we can see, okay, we have something like a total of 370 milliseconds in this sample. And if we add this, we can see it's quite a bit less, maybe a tenth or so. So yeah, like I said, I briefly mentioned this actually does require some instrumentation. So for this to be possible, in the way that I'm showing here, in Parca, we actually instrument the Parca server itself additionally, and we use the Go built-in functionality to do this. So let me show you this. So there's a package in the standard library. Here we go. It'll be pprof.do, and anything that's done within this closure that you pass in will have this label set that you attach to it attached. So this is a way to, for example, people could now add distributed tracing IDs to stack traces that are collected this way. But ultimately, we hope to have some mechanisms to allow doing this not just with pprof profiles generated by the Go runtime, because that's what this does. Ultimately, we want to be able to kind of pass arbitrary labels to Parca Agent as well. Maybe Javier can share some thoughts about this as well. But like I said, we have already a few starting labels implemented in Parca Agent, and yeah, Javier is going to talk about that. But that's the profile label features. That's all this. I mean, I've already demoed it. All this has already landed in main of Parca. So won't be very long until these are actually available. We're just working on landing a few last pieces, but then it'll be out in a few days or weeks probably. Any questions? All right, then that's all from Parca side today. And we have a ton of really awesome updates from Parca Agent, and Javier is going to tell us about that.
Cool. Yeah, so there's been a lot of work the past couple of weeks in Parca Agent. Continuing with what Frederic was talking about, there's been work to add metadata to the different threads. So now we can actually distinguish between them, aggregate by them. And this is particularly important, as Frederic said, for Rust applications that use worker pools or other type of threading scenarios. This is also very typical in C++ applications. So for example, while profiling many databases that are written in C++, they typically have, for example, an IO pool or another pool of threads to do CPU-intensive work. So this is going to allow us to understand what each group of threads is actually doing. So yeah, I think that's pretty exciting, and it's going to be really useful. In terms of our unwinders, so far, we've been focused on native unwinding, and we implemented, like many months ago, support for frame pointer unwinding and then dwarf unwinding. But there was one runtime that actually was not working, which was NodeJS. And in general, like any application that uses v8, that is the JavaScript runtime that Chrome and Node use. So after debugging this, which took a little bit of time because we always expected this to be the problem to be in our code, to be, for example, either in the way we generate the unwind information or perhaps in the unwinder itself, maybe having a bug there, we realized that what was going on was a bit more interesting. So like the way this works is compilers generate this unwind information for every single function that is generated, let's say, ahead of time. So what this means is for every single function that is in your code, written like as a normal function, it would generate information to specify how to unwind from any point of that function. The interesting thing about V8 is that they have some custom assembler where they basically write performance-sensitive code, which is between the interpreter and the JIT, which is generated without having like normal functions in the code. So they just generate them by hand. So what this means is the compiler has no way to know exactly how to generate unwind information for it, because for the compiler, it's just a bunch of bytes. It's not like, let's say, a proper function. And what this means in this case is that we maybe wouldn't have had any problems if they had added some special linker information to tell the compiler how to generate unwind information. But because this is not present, we had to use some other technique. Yeah, fortunately, in V8, everything's compiled with frame pointers by default in every single distribution. So what we decided to do in the end was the more pragmatic approach of having a special case for V8. And whenever we are profiling it, we're just going to use frame pointers all the way. So this fixes the problem. And Frederic and I wrote a blog post. I'm going to share the link. Probably we can share it in the video, but I'm just going to share the screen real quick to show how this looks. It's best to read it on your own computer. But basically, yeah, this describes the problem. But the interesting thing here is that it links out the code inside of V8, where it shows this code generator they have. And yeah, it adds all these extra context that I was kind of mentioning before. And you can also see the patch that we added in Parca Agent, and with all the investigation and how we realized that this was a problem and why this fix was the one that we consider to be appropriate. So yeah, feel free to take a look. I think it was interesting. We spent several hours debugging this. So yeah, we're really happy that we got to the bottom of it. Continuing with unwinding, I'm not sure if actually we talked about this in the last meeting or not, but one other thing that is pretty exciting that we have done is we have enabled frame pointer unwinding for ARM64. This is something that we're going to continue working on, and in the future we want to add full unwinding support for ARM64 with frame pointers or dwarf. But so far we have for frame pointers with unblocks any application that is written in Go or compiled in any language that supports frame pointers and have frame pointers enabled during compilation. So that's also super exciting because a lot of people are running their workloads in Graviton and other ARM processors, and it also allows us to develop on the new ARM Max, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I think those are kind of the main features. We've also done made a lot of other fixes, a lot of performance improvements, and I think that some of the most interesting ones are that we were not unwinding all the processes because of a small bug due to symbols being missing in the binary, so that's already fixed. There's also been a performance optimization, if I'm not wrong, in the code that converts Java. I'm not sure exactly which format it is, but I think it's a format that some Java profilers would use to pprof. I think that allocations and CPU time are heavily reduced. Yeah, Java flag recorder. Yeah, JFR. Thank you, Frederic. And then we've also added metrics to Git unwinding. So before we had like very good metrics for dwarf unwinding, but then when we added the mixed mode unwinding strategy, where we can traverse from Git code to ahead of time code that had dwarf information, we didn't have like very granular metrics on what was going on there. So Sumera added better metrics there, which is great to understand what the profiler is doing and how it's behaving in production. And as usual, if you have any problems with the profiler, something that is super helpful for us is if you can send us the output of the Prometheus metrics. You can just curl the endpoints, and yeah. So yeah, we were going to continue working on a bunch of unwinding improvements. We're also working on some of high-level languages, and in general, like we're keeping on squashing bugs. So yeah, that's kind of been the update for Parca Agent for the past 4 weeks.
Very cool. Do you want to also share some of the things that we're working on?
Yeah, sure. So we're working on a bunch of things. In terms of ARM, as I was saying before, we're trying to get ARM64 support for dwarf unwinding shipped in the next couple of months. And this is, again, very exciting because of all the savings that ARM64 has in production. So that's something that we're looking forward to. Regarding other runtimes and languages, we're working hard in adding support for Python and Ruby. This is in the works, and I think that at least one of them is probably going to be ready in the next 2 months for kind of beta testing, but we're going to obviously talk about this in the next meeting, and we'll mention this in the release notes and probably write a blog post about it too. So I think that's the two biggest ones. We're also exploring Lua. We've done some experimentation there, but I think there's more work that has to be done. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's most of the important things. I'm not sure if there's anything else that you think is relevant. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So yeah, that's what's gonna keep us busy for the foreseeable future.
Very, very cool. Yeah, the team has been very, very busy. Love all the progress. We've seen lots of this be picked up by the community. So really exciting to have gotten a lot of these things. And like we've seen an uptick in people using NodeJS with the agent. We've seen people use ARM with the agent. So yeah, super, super exciting. All right. I think that's all the topics we had for today. Anything off the top of your head that you want to talk about, want to mention? All right, then we'll call this a short one. And as always, anybody watching the recording, you can always join our Discord server, ask any questions there. You can at Parca Dev on Twitter or at Parca Dev on, it's at Parca on Mastodon servers. So yeah, reach out and happy profiling. and have a wonderful local time, everyone. See y'all.